Good morning. We'd like to welcome you to another edition of the Sunday School Review. This week's Sunday School lesson is entitled, "The Lord is Majestic," and is taken from Psalms 93, verses 1 through 5, the entire psalm. That is the entire 93rd psalm. Now, there are two outlines in our lesson today. The first outline is God's reign, and that's verses 1 and 2. And the second outline is God's words. That's verses 3 through 5. Okay, now let us begin with our first outline here, God's reign. And we're going to read and talk about the first two verses of this psalm. Verse 1 says, "The Lord reigns, the Lord reigneth. He is clothed with majesty, the Lord is clothed with strength, wherewith he has girded himself." That's part A, 1A. 1B, "The world also is established that it cannot be moved." Okay, now the first verse tells us that it is the Lord that reigneth, the Lord and no other. Now we know he's Lord of lords and King of kings. And the Lord reigneth. He reigns over everything and everyone. And his reign is everlasting, eternal. Okay, so the word majesty refers to what it refers to as grandiose or large or impressive. Okay, there is no equal. Now, in this lesson here, it's going to talk about human rulership versus the Lord's reign. Now, and in that, as I said, there is no comparison. And the Lord reigns over the entire creation. That is all of creation. And part B, 1B said the Lord is he's clothed with strength. Well, that's still part A. He's clothed with strength. So that's he's robed with those things. Just like the lesson is talking about how a king is generally robed with, robes and fine linen. But the Lord is robed in greatness, okay, in majesty and strength, okay, where that's what he's robed in it. He's girded in that. And for example, in Genesis 1:1, we find that the Lord God created the universe. God is the supreme, he's the creator of the universe, and he is the supreme ruler of the universe. Okay, there is no comparison. When it comes to human reign versus the Lord's reign, there is no equal. There is nothing that can be compared to this. And this lesson is going to explain, and you're going to see how that there is no comparison. When we go through this lesson, there's a few verses here, there's only 5 verses, but you're going to see how there is no comparison to God, the Lord's rulership, his reign, his power. Okay. The part B said the world is also established that it cannot be moved. So there is no changing. So we can rest assured that God is not a changing God. And we're going to see how in the end, and the last verse, it's going to talk about his statutes are unchanging. Okay. So we can depend on that. For example, just give you an example with our laws. Every year, every year, the tax laws change. Now, you may be given some warning, maybe, okay, this is 2005. Okay, maybe they will tell you in 2006, the law is going to change. So it gives you a beware. Well, you may want to do this. So when 2005 in, and you got to prepare your tax for 2005, you can get prepared. But in our system, even our other laws, civil laws, criminal laws, they change. So, in that sense, they are somewhat unpredictable. You cannot totally trust that. Okay, you can't, if it's 2000, if it's 2024, you can't depend on the 2023 tax laws to cover you, because in 2024 the tax laws change. You can't use the rules 2023 rules. But with God's statute, they don't change. So you can rely on those, they are dependable. So the Lord is unchanging, reliable. Okay, so the world is established and cannot be changed. And if you read in Genesis how God created everything, and we're going to talk about it, the seas, he set the boundaries, okay, where this is your boundary. You can't go past this boundary. God set that, and it cannot be changed. Cannot be changed because God set the boundary. Okay, verse 2 said that throne is established of old. And this is basically what I was saying right here. The throne is established of old, thou art from everlasting. Everlasting. The Lord is the supreme ruler. His reign is eternal, forever, everlasting. Okay, and as it relates to the creation, the Lord is the only King. As I said earlier, He's Lord of Lords, King of Kings. We have what we call, basically, He is the supreme ruler. We may have a ruler or a king, but He's over every ruler, every king, every Lord, Lord of Lords, King of Kings. Okay, so his throne is established of old, from the beginning. Thou art everlasting, the supreme ruler, the only king. Okay, so the Lord reigns, basically, the Lord reigns forever. The Lord and no other reign. And the Lord's kingdom is everlasting. Okay. The second outline is verses 3 through 5, and it's God's words. Okay, let's read the first verse there. That is verse 3. The flood have lifted up, O Lord. The floods have lifted up their voice. The floods lift up their waves. Okay, the Lord on high is mightier than the noise of the many waters, yea, than the mighty waves of the sea. Okay, that was verses 3 and 4. Let's talk about those two verses there. Okay, now it said the floods. It's talking about waters, the sea. Now, the sea represents troubles, chaos. Okay, and the sea, the natural elements, that is the sea, the wind, the waves. Okay, and verse 4 said, the Lord is mightier than many waters, the waves of the sea. And we know about Jesus when he was, he calmed the sea. He spoke to the wind and the waves, and they obeyed him. There was a time that the disciples that was on the boat, on the ship, and they were afraid because of the waves and the wind. And Jesus calmed the sea. He spoke to the wind, he spoke to the waves, and they obeyed him. Now, we understand that, and as it relates to our weather and the weather forecasting. Now, in the coast, like the Florida coast and the Carolinas, when they expect a hurricane, and they have categories of hurricane, all the way from category 1 to category 5. That's the most powerful that they have alluded to. Category 5 hurricane. Now, category 1 and 2, you expect, and it's based on wind speed, how they identify these hurricanes. Now, category 1 and 2, obviously the wind speeds have to be a certain degree, but once we get to category 3 hurricane, the weather station, the weather channel will tell you to evacuate. Category 3 is considered a major hurricane. They don't tell you, don't worry, we're going to take care of you. We're going to, don't worry. Compare and contrast that with Jesus. He spoke to the wind. He spoke to the sea. Now, can you imagine the weatherman said, well, I'm going to speak to this hurricane, this category 3, 4, 5 hurricane, and this is going to calm down. They tell you, evacuate. Once they get to 3, they identify as a hurricane 3, evacuate. No questions asked. So let's read verse 4 again. The Lord on high is mightier than the water. He's mightier than any natural elements. And as I said, the hurricane, that's a natural phenomenon. Once it get to a 3, they tell you to evacuate. There's nothing we can do but just, in other words, get out of town. Maybe 1 and 2, you board up and all that, you hunker down, but when 3, you evacuate. Verse 4 said, the Lord is mightier. So no matter how bad things get, no matter how bad the storm in your life, as I said, this verse, when it talks about waters and the sea, is talking about chaos. The sea represents chaos. No matter how chaotic your life get, the Lord is in control. The Lord is He's in control. As I said, when we get to a category 3 hurricane, a man is not in control. Well, they're really not in control in 1 and 2, but we can prepare. Like I said, we can hunker down. But once they get to 3, you better get out of town. You better evacuate. But the Lord can handle any any crisis, any disaster that comes into your life. Said the Lord, the 3 said the flood lifted up. The floods have lifted up their voice. The floods lift up their waves. In other words, no matter what the situation is that's going on in your life, what storm is brewing in your life, the Lord is mightier than any forces of nature. His power controls the world. Human power does not control the world. Okay, it controls the world. Now, they were talking about, I've heard reports that a lot of the diseases that came about, maybe COVID, different things of that sort, was created in the lab. I don't know. But, and it got out of control. But nothing God has created has gotten out of control. If you go back to Genesis, he separated the waters. And now he created all of these elements, and he's still in complete control. In other words, he didn't create the winds and the sea. Well, it's got out of control. We got a category 5 hurricane. Or maybe, now they haven't predicted a 6 yet, category 6, but maybe, and like I said, it's based on wind speed, but maybe they might say, well, there's a category 6 hurricane. We don't care. As it relates to the Lord, that could be a category 10 hurricane. And the Lord is still in control. He created the universe. He's the ruler of the universe, and he is in complete control of the universe. As verse 1 says, he's clothed with majesty, with strength. He is able, he has the power, he has the strength to control the universe in which he has created. As I said, he created, he reigns and creates, rules over everything and everyone. Okay, let's read. So again, just make sure I read the last clause of verse 4. Yea, mightier than the waves of the sea. As I said, the waves of the sea is very powerful and unpredictable. Now, even if you know, like they said, a hurricane, they predict that the hurricane is going to touch land at a certain point. But that may change. Well, it was gonna hit the tip of Florida, but the course was diverted. Okay, so the sea, the waves, the wind is very powerful and unpredictable, very chaotic. But the Lord can control. He is in complete control of it. Okay. Let's look at our last verse, verse 5. Thou testimonies are very sure. In other words, that word, that statutes are very sure, not unchanging, is unchanging, not like our laws, which, as I say, a lot of laws, tax laws is one example, but there are other laws that change from time to time. So you can't totally depend on the law to be the same from year to year, from day to day. But God's statutes, God's laws are unchanging. You can trust them. You can have faith and depend upon God's laws because they are unchangeable and you can depend on them. You can trust them. Okay, that's part A of verse 5. Thy testimonies are very sure. And B, holiness becometh his house. God is holy. Holiness becometh thine house, O Lord, forever. The Lord is holy. He has always been holy. He always will be holy. And his testimonies or his statutes or his laws are unchangeable and they are dependable. The Lord is trustworthy. The Lord changes not. And we can trust and depend on him. And that's our lesson today. The Lord is majestic. He is grandiose. He's large and he's impressive and an imposing entity. The Lord is majestic. That's our lesson. We thank you for watching. We ask you to join us next week for another edition of the Sunday School Review. Thank you.